Hi guys, and welcome to another 5 minutes to connect. Today I want to talk about dealing with change. Now for some of us, change is a really exciting thing that we embrace, and for others of us, change is a really difficult thing for us to learn to navigate. Some of us just hate it. Well, the reality is for every single one of us this year, we've had to face some major changes in how we do church, perhaps how we do home life and work life, changes in how we connect with one another, perhaps changes in our job. And so the question is, how do we deal with this change? How do we navigate through this change well? Where can we go to get the answers, to find wisdom in order to how to best navigate this change? Well, we know the answer, don't we? We go to Jesus. We go to his word for inspiration to help us. And when I think about the Bible and think about change, there's one person that really stands out, and that's Daniel. You see, Daniel was a Jewish Israelite. He lived in Israel. And I can only imagine him and his parents had great plans for Daniel growing up. But overnight, his whole life changed when he was taken captive by the Babylonians. And he was taken from his home country and taken to Babylon. Overnight, his whole world had changed. The food that he was being presented with was different from what he was used to. As a matter of fact, it was food that he knew he shouldn't eat because he wanted to stay pure and holy before God. He was in a land where different gods were being worshipped, gods which he knew were counterfeit gods. He was in a land where the language was different, the culture was different, and even himself had his name changed by the Babylonians so that they could say it easily, much easier than his Hebrew name. Daniel faced many changes. And yet we see he responds in an amazing way. We can learn so much from him. And there's three things I want to look at. The first is character. Despite the changing climate that Daniel found himself in, his character was consistent. And what we see is an amazing character being displayed. You see, I don't know about you, but if a king had taken me captive and taken me from my home with all those plans and dreams that I had and put me into captivity, I might be angry with that king. I might be angry with that people. But Daniel chose to serve that king with the gifts that God had given him. You see, King Nebuchadnezzar had many dreams that he wanted Daniel to interpret. And Daniel did just that. He served the king. He honored the king. He honored the situation that he was in and still chose to serve despite where he found himself, rather than being bitter and angry. But above that, what we really see in Daniel's character is that he would honor God above all else. You see, as I said, there were times where he had his faith being challenged and even encouraged to compromise his faith, but he chose to honor God above all else. He chose to abstain from eating certain foods and refused to worship anyone other than his God, and refused to not, when he is told not to pray to his God, he refused that and continued to pray. And so that leads on to the second thing that we see in Daniel, and that is commitment. That Daniel was committed to God, the King above all. And we see that really displayed in his commitment to prayer and worship, keeping that rhythm to his lifestyle. It became the very center place which he would come and draw from God, that would give him the strength to be able to continue to face all the difficulties that came with this changing world that he found himself in. Phil, in the last post, spoke about how Jesus too did this, that he would frequently withdraw in order to draw from God, to draw from his Father, to seek wisdom for the challenges and the trials that he faced. And we see this in Daniel's life. And I think it's true of us that we need to stay committed to God, committed to that time with him, where we can draw from him and find the strength to face the changes that we find ourselves in, and the uncertainty of the changes that may be ahead of us. And thirdly, we see in Daniel is confidence. A confidence in his God. And we don't just see it in Daniel, we see it in his friends as well. We know the two famous stories of Daniel. Daniel in the lion's den. Wow. He was thrown into a lion's den, and yet he had confidence in his God that God would shut the mouth of those lions. And we see it with Daniel's friends, with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. When they're thrown into the fire, they trust their God is going to be with them, that he will save them. And even if he doesn't, that they know where they're going to go. And what happens? God shows up in the fire. God is with them. This absolute assurance in who God is, that he is good, he is faithful, and he is for them, seems to be a thread that runs throughout the story of Daniel. An absolute assurance in who God is, that he is for us. And so, what can we learn from Daniel when it comes to facing change and challenge in our life? Well, let's be a people of character who honour God above all else, but also seek to honour those in whom we're under. Honour our government by praying for them, by serving one another. Let's be a people who are committed to prayer and worship, to come before God, bring those challenges before him, to present them to him and allow him to fuel us and to equip us and enable us to keep on running the race. And thirdly, let's be a people of confidence in who our God is, that he's for us, that he's with us even in the fire, he's with us even in the den, that he's gone before us and prepared a great place for us, and that he is good and he's faithful. And so, as you go into the rest of this week, I pray that this word will be an encouragement to you. Perhaps you want to go and read a little bit more about Daniel's story and be encouraged by it. And I pray that you truly are. And let's remember that in this changing world, we serve an unchanging God. God bless you.